everything I do is not just for me, it's for my people. How can I encourage them to step outside their box and do some different things?
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. Today, I have a surprise because I have two guests, and they were one introduced the other. One was introduced to me by Kiki Palin, who is my dear friend and has helped me find a lot of good people. And then, because of her, we found somebody else. So, on today's episode, we have Paula Swepson, who is the executive director of West Marion Community Forum in North Carolina. And then we have the world famous Dayna Reggero, who's already done an episode with us, who is a filmmaker and many other things. And I said to them before we started recording that I don't know enough about them. I want them to tell us ourselves who they are. And we are going to start with Paula because she's never been on this podcast before.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Paula Swepson, as she stated, and I am a lifetime resident of McDowell County. And I have worked in manufacturing most of my life, but the past 9 years, I've been doing community work. And it's just been an amazing journey of my life, to be able to have a vision with my community, not for my community. And that what sparked me to actually start this work is the facilitator who I later wrote a book with, Mary Snow. The question she asked is, what is your vision for your community? And I was like, wow, I didn't know we had a choice. So at 50 years old, I'm like, I didn't even know any of this. It was just like, okay, so we have a choice. And we were in my community, and I was like, people, do you hear what they're saying? We have a choice. Let's make some changes for the betterment of our community. So that's what still sparks me daily.
Having a choice. I think that's very beautiful. I mean, I go by that beautiful saying that you can never choose what happens, but you can always choose how you want to react. You always have a choice about that. And my dear Dayna, we know you already, but I want you to say it again.
Oh, thank you so much for having us on. I'm so grateful to you for your show, for the work you do listening. I'm Dayna Reggero. I'm the director of the Climate Listening Project. And I'm also, a filmmaker and environmentalist. Just in my daily life, I really try to, do the things that I care about. And what I care about is community. And so while I was living in North Carolina, in the mountains, I one day saw something about the West Marion Community Forum. And so I just went and showed up and crashed one of their meetings one day. And I was so amazed by Paula and the listening that she does as well. And so I always find myself surrounded by amazing people like you two who care so much about communities, about people, and in listening. And I think that listening is so important now when so many people, don't feel heard. You can be in a room full of people, you can be in a relationship, you can be in a family, you can be with people, but still never really feel heard. And so the work that I do going around the world, and now with a new film project with Paula, with the West Marion group, called Climate Change and is my latest listening project that I'm so excited about now.
You said something about listening, which really strikes me. It touches my soul because one thing that we don't do is listen. We mostly spend our time waiting to reply, instead of listening. And I was recently talking to a friend, and we were talking about kids. When our kids want us to listen to them. They don't want us to solve every single problem. They just want to tell us. And I think this is a big mistake that many parents make, to immediately want to find a solution. It's not necessary. You just have to listen. And I think, Paula, you listen a lot. Do you listen to people in your community? How does that work?
Yes, on a daily basis, I listen to people in my community. And like you say, sometimes people just need a listening ear, And one of the things I try to get across to my team is we listen to understand, not to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know about people's lived experiences. So the best thing to do is try to listen and see their viewpoint. so you can get a better understanding where they're coming from, and then you can meet in a happy medium most of the time. And it's also good to agree to disagree. So listening is my life. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think it's beautiful to be a good listener. Dayna, what's the project that you are doing together? Tell me about that.
The work that Paula was doing in the community essentially is a big listening project. And so, West Marion Community Forum, when you open up a space like that, a safe space in your community for people to come in and be heard, I was so inspired. And so, living in the mountains of North Carolina myself, I saw that 2013 was the wettest year on record. And that's when I started my climate listening project, was listening in those exact mountains. And so even though I've been gone for many years and I've traveled all over the world listening, when this past year, Hurricane Helene hit this community, I saw people that I deeply care about, losing the place that they love to these horrific floods, and it was just absolutely devastating. But when you look deep, right, you see these people, these helpers, these good people like Paula, who had been listening for a decade also now, and already knew the community. They had already been helping the community, so they immediately were able to start working with like emergency management services to jump in and listen on the phones and help. They were able to jump in and support people that were scattered. These are mountain people scattered whose roads had been taken out and things that maybe couldn't get into town to get the help they needed. They already knew who everybody was that may need help and what they might need. And, I just think that kind of connectivity that the West Marion Community Forum provided was so inspiring, and that idea of that deep listening in community going on is just such a model that can be shared and used. And so she said, Dayna, come back. When Hurricane Helene hit, she said, Dayna, come back. And I said, I don't want to just make a film about Hurricane Helene and the bad stuff that happened. I want to show the listeners the good, hopeful, beautiful, resilient people that are caring so much for each other. And that's exactly what they do. And it's been really beautiful. And I'm already seeing cuts of the film. Y'all, the we were there in autumn, the leaves and the people, they're really heroes.
Paula, is this your home? Is this where you're from?
Yes. Yes. I lived here all my life.
So you've
From
lived there all your life. I have to tell you something. I'm in Cyprus. I'm in Europe, and you mentioned Hurricane Helene many times. We heard about the fires in California. We heard about so many things 100 times. We didn't hear much about Hurricane Helene. Are your people children of a lesser God?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that you didn't hear it, because you know the whole premise of the hurricane coming, I was like, yeah, we're in the mountains, and we're this is supposed to be a safe haven. This is where people travel to leave their homes to start a new life here because of the mountains. So the devastation should never hit here. And on Wednesday before the hurricane actually hit, we had like 2 days of heavy rain, and our emergency management director, Will Keller, he did a reverse 911 call. And my thought was, I've never heard that from emergency management, that this is serious. And so by the time Thursday night, Friday morning, when the hurricane actually hit, it was it was still numbing to just think, because I had one tree fall in my yard and I live in a cul-de-sac. So I'm like, okay, so it's not that bad. That's that one tree. And then I go to the top of the hill from where I live, and there's trees and limbs everywhere. And I'm like, wow. And then once we realized that we have no internet, we have no phone service. I thought, well, okay, the line's down. And normally where I live, the power may stay off an hour or two. Well, we were like 12 hours without power, and I was 3 weeks without internet. So just right here, with just one tree fell, the devastation around me. But to go, uh, my grandson's father was stuck in Asheville, and he didn't know how to get home. And I have adventurous children, and I was like, well, let's just go get him. And my son 4-wheel drive, so we're going through, and it's like a maze trying to get down the a I say it's a highway, but it's always been clear, and everything looked like it just like the Tasmanian devil come through and just said, "I'm going to tear up everything." So to have that happen here in our own community, and you say you not hear about it because it was on like ABC News, but I think the main focus was the urban areas and not the rural areas. So maybe they just thought Asheville was the only one that got hit. So not
It
surprising.
was a big hit, and and I'm sure lots of people lost homes, and lots of people lost everything. So, how is it now? I mean, have you been able to recover? Have you been able to rebuild, clear?
Yeah, I mean we're in the process of always funding is an issue, especially with the federal government now. We don't know what we could get from day to day, but it's what we realized through the whole hurricane that we are one. The one is no better than each other because the water and the winds and the trees didn't care where they fell. One of our House of Representatives for North Carolina, he was a previous sheriff here, Dudley Green. He lost everything. So what it showed our community, and McDowell County is special. We do get along, and with the population is only 3.9% black. So I've been around white people all my life, so I guess I'm just used to it, just the way they operate. But it showed that everybody can come together for the common good. Let's get together. I just say one thing. A white man did send me an email, and he was talking about the forums. He's like, "Well, I've been on the main street of Old Fort, and I've not seen nothing but one black person." Well, grant you, we just 3.9%. You lucky you seen that one, but at the same time, I had to come back and tell them we're not on Main Street in Old Fort. We're out in community, knocking on doors and offering listening ears and hugs and candy bars, something to make people feel there is hope. So that's just the way, our organization operates. We go to the people. We don't expect them to come to a pod and pick up supplies because transportation was already an issue. So, I mean, and now roads are washed out. So how can we get to the people, that we know are out there? That's what we do. We just go knock on the doors and make sure, you got everything you need. And here's some other resources that's going on.
That's very beautiful. So you just go and knock on people's doors and help them. I think that what you said is that, we are one and people come together. But isn't it sometimes a little sad? I don't know if you have if this is your opinion, Dana, that it needs something bad for people to come together. Shouldn't we come together without these things?
Well,
Yes.
the reality is that, all bad things don't always bring people together. Sometimes good things bring people together. We never
Okay.
know what's going to bring
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
together. Paula's book that she wrote is actually called Shift Happens in Community. And I kind of love it because shift does happen. And we always have to just kind of be ready to flow and whether, that's why I'm calling the movie Climate Change because yes, we have climate change, but we also have our own daily day-to-day struggles in our own personal lives. We have, the issues that we deal with in community. We have bigger global issues that we deal with. I mean, there's layers of trauma that we all, deal with individually. But climate change and hope, climate change and our vision for the future, we have to always be thinking of how we can better work together, how we can, be an inspiration for others. And that's what I hope to show, that listening is healing, that when we sit down together around a table, hopefully a bad thing didn't always bring us to that table, but whatever got us to that table, we can take steps forward through listening, through healing, and I think that that's what, having that vision that we want is so important. When you're at the table saying this is what we hope for, this is what would be great. um Not always talking just about the bad. And so I love Paula being so visionary in the future. They just had a building donated that was, something that had been lost through years ago, and it kind of went to ruins, but now it's being given to them by the city and by this company and these people, that you wouldn't have expected that. And now the whole community is coming together in a way that you wouldn't see, to bring in funding to revitalize this building and create a resilience hub for the future. Would that have happened if the hurricane didn't happen? Yeah, because it happened
Yeah.
before and these things we never know. But now that hurricane is accelerating new people to the conversation, and it's inspirational. It's beautiful when people do come together.
So, Paula, what will you do with the building that you got?
So it was the old Hutchins High Mountain View School that my parents attended. So it was built in 1956. It was closed when desegregation happened in 1965. And the actual building was one of the newer buildings in the county, but because it was the black building, they made them go to, the white people didn't want to come to a black school. So it was basically they made them leave their culture, everything behind and start anew. And so in 1980, Broyhill Furniture purchased it. And in 1995, 96, I started working for Broyhill Furniture. So I worked my way up. I was the first black manager in the history of the organization. I did that in 8 years. And my job, I worked at the Marion plant, and I ended up working in Lenore with the corporate. And my job was actually to shut that plant down. So it was weird. And so now, last in 2023, the mayor called me in, and grant you, the city had tried to get it before. They didn't want to sell it. NAACP wanted it. They wouldn't sell it to them. And here was a phone call in September of 2023, and the mayor's like, write this down. September 16th at 1:46 p.m., they want to give the school back to the people that it came from. And I was actually with one of my funders, Jason Bazin from Kate B. Reynolds, and he's been doing this work with me. He was the first fund I ever worked with. And it was nothing but tears because I was like, finally, something's happening to our community uh, that people have desired for so long. I just say one of the community members come to my house just yesterday, and she was like, Paula, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't know who was in my first grade class at this school. Can you help me figure that out? And that's the type of trust we West Marion Incorporated has in the community. They know we're going to figure out, we're going to help this, the issues. But since then, so we got it in April of 2024, and we have an architect and a feasibility study and all this stuff, and it's going to be the resilience hub because it's going to be a green building. Because we knew from Dayna's presentation back in 2019 that climate change is real. And I can say I really didn't think about it, care about it until Dayna spoke. And I was like, wow, this is some serious stuff. So the whole premise behind this building is once another disaster happens, because we know what's going to happen. We have a fire that started yesterday here, and they had to evacuate people in the middle of the night. So we know there's always going to be a need everywhere where people needs a place to go. And what you find is like the temporary shelters will pop up, but they have to get back to business as usual. Their work is not for community. It's about whatever that building's for. So our building is about community. So once it's built, people are still living in tents. So they wouldn't have to do that. They're still living in the hotels. They could still be in this building because it's 20,000 square feet. We're taking it up to 60,000. So we're going to have enough um, room for everybody and give them it's going to have a behavioral health clinic in it. Immediately, once Party Hospital found out we were getting the building, they were like, we want to put a clinic in your building. So they would have the behavioral health service that's needed during times of trauma.
Amazing. You said a wildfire. Is it normal that at this time of the year, doesn't it rain in the winter?
Yes, it does rain. But if you think about, so we had the hurricane, and it was in so middle of October, right after the hurricane, end of September, October. It's normally getting cool here. It was 80 some degrees. So you have the hurricane, you have the trees down, they're in the forest and they're drying out. And a simple hike in the woods could spark a cigarette, whatever, you know. So with the winds were really high yesterday. So no, we haven't seen. We've seen fires in the past, but not consecutive as have it happened since October. So I think this is the third time since October that we've had wildfires. I say within a 10-mile radius of my home.
Dayna, what have you been up to apart from working with Paula? Am I right in thinking that you were in Sweden, that you were spending time with Kiki?
I did come see Kiki in Sweden. I'm so grateful for Kiki. I actually met her when I was on a National Geographic tour of the Southeast United States. I met her all the way at the end, at the most southern point there of Key West. And I was so glad I found her. And so I've been wanting for years to go see her in Sweden. A few years ago, I did a screening with the Stockholm Resilience Center. And so I actually went with Kiki and we got to visit with the Stockholm Resilience Center. And then I traveled to London and I met with the Chanel Foundation. And I've been now, out in Los Angeles connecting with folks and just trying to, sort of mix my time up between being in community, listening, and going to big cities, going to big media places and hubs of community that wants to help the other communities. And so I've been doing a bit of traveling in between, and I had just finished my new film Apology to Earth, which was about Florida, Philippines, and Japan, people around the world protecting our coastlines. And so that's premiering now, and just trying to share these hopeful, beautiful stories of people that are, doing good, people that are protecting their coastlines, people like Paula who are, building resilience hubs that are going to have innovation centers in them to help people create new jobs and have opportunities to host new events and new ways of bringing people together, to educate people about things like the wildfires and the hurricanes that now used to be maybe like 100-year flood or something. These things in California, in Los Angeles, I was just out with the Jane Goodall Institute, and I just interviewed Jane Goodall, so I'll be releasing that interview. But we were talking about how in LA, we just had this devastating wildfire. So I've been listening. I've been helping film in the community of Altadena that was destroyed by the Eaton fire, and all these artists and musicians who lost their studios and their instruments and their, just devastation. But this wildfire was so big and so much more devastating than what is normally expected. And so they were telling me how this year, or like these coming years, is like the expected time of the 100-year flood in LA. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. So we know sometimes that we have these big, huge weather events, but when I went in and I met with Paula and got to go to the community forum and saw the listening that they were doing and the way that she listened to me, and when I had said, my first film in Asheville in that area was called Asheville Rain, and that was 10 years ago. And people still didn't believe me, but when I went to Paula, she believed me, and they started taking action before that hurricane hit, before the wildfires hit. And so a lot of my work, like now I'm in Florida, I'm premiering the film Apology to Earth, and it was in the daily newspaper interviewed me, and they said, what do you hope? And I said, I just hope that young people and filmmakers and artists can listen and can share these stories to protect the environment, to protect the community, communities, these beautiful stories that are real and are happening and deserve to be heard. And so I'm just out here listening. That's all I'm doing. And I'm just grateful to find people like Paula and you who listen as well.
That is so beautiful. I love the title, Apologies to Earth.
Yes, it's an offering. These folks that are like Paula are taking these actions. That's our apology. It's an apology in action.
Fantastic. You were talking about the Resilience Center, Paula, and about what you're going to do with that building that you got. If you could choose, if somebody came with a magic wand and would say, Paula, you can have anything you want for your community center, for your forum, what would you want?
Okay, so first I would want a bridge because there was a bypass that split our community back in the early 90s. So I want that bridge. I want this it's the project is 25 to 30 million. So I would want enough money to get this building because what we have shown in the community that yes, we're the first and only Black-led nonprofit in the county, but we have a diverse group of people who come and they believe in McDowell County and they love McDowell County. So whatever they would want, I mean, if it's just a meeting place, we work with McDowell LFAC, is Local Food Advisory Council, and they have a program called Foothills Food Hubs that works with local farmers. We would be feeding people because there's always waste when it comes to food. Some things farmers can't even, sell at the markets. So we could take that food. We're going to have a commercial kitchen. So we'll be preparing food. We'll give entrepreneurs a chance to come and, cook their food. Last night we had a closing of one of our grants and we had a local catering company and they locally source everything from Western North Carolina. I mean, those opportunities that we could continue to give to people to say, like me, I didn't know there was an option. So lots of people have just been, in their bubble, living their life, doing the best they can, not realizing there's other things out there they can do that will take nothing from them, but that will give back to community. So that would be my magic wand. We need this bridge. We need a footbridge. We need the building built. And the city of Marion, I would be wrong if I didn't say about our partnership with them. They're amazing. The mayor, like I said, the mayor called me. I was like, the mayor called me. So with this little town, but just to have them on board for this project where we already got the zoning and the permitting to build the building. So we don't even have the money yet, and the city believes so much in us, they know we're gonna get it, and so that would be my magic wand.
Okay, that's not, you should have more. I believe you should tell me something because normally on this most memorable journey, we talk about travel. We haven't really, this was very, very interesting and I loved what we said. But Paula, do you travel?
Yes, a little too much.
Where do you go?
Mainly for work, but I've been to Jamaica. We actually were going to Portugal to present our work, but it was during COVID, and so they had to do it virtually. So all over the United States, we've been able to travel. I was going to London with Dayna, but life be life,
She's
and
just she was just in New Orleans for the first time presenting her work as well, and in Atlanta and Jacksonville.
yeah, I've been. I mean, we're nationwide for sure. I'm adventurous. Only one in my family who has been adventurous is this, but I am really simple. But I love new adventures. I'm not too much on height, but I don't really like flying. But I realize I have to do those things to get to where I can see something different. Everything I do is not just for me, it's for my people. How can I encourage them to step outside their box and do some different things?
Wonderful. Dayna, we're coming to the end already, but I'm giving you the opportunity because I believe that the West Marion Community Forum should get more attention. And because you know how to talk well, you have now the opportunity to pitch this to our listeners. How because you've been there and you know it, because I know that Paula knows it much better, but she is modest. I think you are a little bit more straightforward. So What should happen? What else should happen there?
Yes, I believe in Paula and the West Marion Community Forum team. When I filmed there, I said to my cinematographer, Zachary Kanzler, I want the most beautiful shots of these people because it really is a hopeful story of a community that didn't wait for the thing to happen to them. They went out beforehand and they started listening. They started caring for the community. They brought in all kinds of collaborations like me, when they didn't even really know about climate. And I showed up. They invited me to have a forum about climate impacts and that might come to the community. And we had all these different stakeholders from the YMCA to the food hub to the city to the hospital and everybody having these conversations. And so when I think about this resilience hub and I think about how all those little conversations have grown so much in these last years and the work that she's been doing and the forum has been doing and how that can be really translated through this resilience hub. So if they were to be able to raise the full 30 million that they're looking for right now, which I believe is an easy ask, um, it would provide the opportunity for this building to have solar panels, to be a green structure, all of the newest latest innovation in water and in every way to be good with the local environment, a green roof, everything. In addition, there would be opportunities for, as Paula said, this food incubator essentially. And so with the commercial kitchen, what we see is opportunity for new people to start their own business that they could sell at the local farmers market, that they could start to sell in stores. When you have a commercial kitchen, it provides new opportunities for new individuals to start going after their dreams. She wants to do tech trainings and teaching people how to use the latest AI and all of the newest tools and making sure people have access to these kinds of tools. And so having those opportunities for people to be able to come in and have technology and to be able to start their own businesses or to get jobs, training, and um, all of those little kinds of things where she mentioned the healthcare and the hospital reaching out and saying, hey, we want to have a behavioral health clinic in there. All of these are that climate change, and we need healthcare to be good for the people. We need the technology, the people and the people to be connected and to understand everything that's happening and changing. And, we need people to be able to have access to local healthy food and be able to create small businesses and to be able to take care of each other when a storm hits or whatever it may be, a fire or just a place to go to be heard. And so this opportunity, I think, of scaling that up will be not only as Paula said, this building, but it's bringing a bridge over a road that had split this community. It's bringing the entire community back together. So when you see those things happen, you see people starting to walk, you see communities flourish, you see other businesses pop up around the Resilience Hub. So the local city has been such an amazing partner because they see this economic development opportunity. There are so many people that are on board with Paula because she cares so deeply for the community. And then with the book, she's been invited to travel and to share this success story that she's already had. Um, and so she's open to travel even more and to come and share this story with you all, and also to invite you to come to Marion to see, after Hurricane Helene and go on your own listening tour. So come on and see Paula and Marion, or invite her out to come and see you. But let's make these connections happen. And then the story Climate Change and that film will be coming soon. And you can go to westmarion.org to learn more about all of that.
Yes, Paula, I think you should employ her as your spokeswoman.
Hey, everybody, my whole team brings something different that I don't have, and that's what makes it work. There's no competition going on. We know that everybody in my circle brings something special. They're respected, and they use their time and talent the way they see fit. I am an introvert, as you can tell, so I don't really. I'm like, Yes, okay, it's like this, but Dana, she gives it the power. My work is the passion, and I really, I am the most best is when I'm standing up for my people. So that this is all work that I do to stand up for my people.
I think that's a very,
Yeah.
very beautiful ending to this podcast episode. Thank you so much. All the best. And thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys, Paula Swepson and Dayna Reggero. She's been here twice and I still don't know how to say her name, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hopefully hear from you soon. And hey, you can go to westmarion.org and donate, donate, donate. That's all I can say to get this money.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.